Today I'm going to be going over my setup for fishing the Niagara River for salmon, steelhead, brown trout, and lake trout. So I'll start off with the reel. This is a Fluger President model 6935. It holds 200 yards of 6-pound test, or 230 yards of 6-pound test. I like having a reel that holds a lot of line because in a place like the Niagara River, in my opinion, you'll want at least 150 yards of line, and the more you have, the better, because it's a big river, you know. And if those fish get in the fast current on you, they'll just take out all of your line. If you got really light line or you don't have enough line, then you'll either be spooled or broken off real easy. And this is 15-pound braided line. Now, a lot of people are wondering, like, I'm not bass fishing, so why am I using braided line? I'm not hauling fish out of heavy cover or anything. But the reason I like using this stuff is because it's really, really thin. Okay, this is the diameter of 4-pound test mono, so I can fit 240 plus yards of it on this reel here. Now, most braided line spools usually come with around 100 to 150 yards of line. So what I've done is I've bought 2 spools and then connected them with a blood knot. And when you're connecting lines, especially when they're way down in your spool, you want to make sure that it's a good knot, because if a fish takes out line on you and he gets to that knot and that knot isn't strong, that line's going to snap. This is a Rapala Magnum. It's 13 feet, medium light action, float rod, 2-piece, rated for 4 to 10-pound test. And there's all the specs on it there. Now, I'm going to go over 2-piece rods and 3-piece, 4-piece, all that. I don't recommend getting a 4-piece rod. Like, this is a 13-foot, it's pretty long, it's 2 pieces, and it breaks down to about, a little less than 7 feet. And a lot of people are probably wondering, oh, it's too much for me to store in my trunk, I won't be able to transport it. I need something that can break down into 4 pieces or 3 pieces, or even something that's shorter. Number one, when you're fishing a big river, it pays to have a longer rod, okay? Because, like I said, if those fish get, if they're that far away from you, just a longer rod's going to allow you to control them a lot easier. And also, a 4-piece rod is just not reliable, okay? I gotta say, they're a lot less durable and weaker than a 2-piece rod. Now, I might get a little bit of controversy on that. That might start a little bit of controversy, but I've had 2 4-piece rods, and I've been out fishing with them. They work pretty good. And then the next day I went back out fishing with it, and the tip snaps. I get another one, and the thing breaks again. So, and also, you can see, I'll just show you here's the split in the rod right there. So when you have a bunch of these connections on your rod, it's just going to make your rod weaker. And it's not going to bend completely, perfectly. So yeah, I suggest 2-piece rods. And if you want something versatile like I like, Yeah, going with braided line is good because it allows you to use heavier line for, salmon or lake trout, and then lighter line for smaller streams like steelhead and brown trout fishing in small streams. So yeah, this is a pretty versatile rod. 4 to 10 pound test, it's rated for, and even though it's rated pretty light, it still holds up my weight I've got on here, which I'm going to get to now. Well, actually, let me just go over the butt section. Like most float rods, it's got an adjustable grip that you can slide anywhere up and down the line, up and down the cork. And what's good about that is it allows you to adjust the length of how high up your reel's sitting on your cork, like to your height or your preferences. Personally, I like having it up here because I like having a lot of butt to stick under my armpit or in my chest or in my belly while I'm fighting the fish. If I have it down here, it's going to wear out my arms really fast, and it'll tire me out before I tire out the fish. Some people are different, Some people like just holding it with just their arm or just bracing it against their arm, like this. You put that cork underneath your arm and just use that cork to put a lot of pressure on the fish without wearing yourself out. I do that as well, but I also like it to put under my arm or in my chest or in my belly there. So yeah, it's all about personal preference. So I'll go up here to float and my rig. So like I said, 15-pound braid, and I'm going to show you the second reason I'm using 15-pound braided line in a minute. And where's that bobber stop at? Okay, now if I was fishing the Niagara River, I would have this a lot further up because I'm going to be fishing a lot deeper water. But I'll just go over what the functions of all these are. So first of all, like I said, bobber stop, that little black, white bead, doesn't matter what color it is, obviously. A nice, good quality Thill float, a ½ ounce of lead weight, another bead to protect the knot on my swivel there. And let me just go over the function of this bobber stop. So what this does, it stops the bobber. It's exactly what it sounds like. Yeah, you see that? See how the bobber can't go any further? And now the bead, the reason most people use a bead when they're fishing using a bobber stop, or a slip bobber, is because this bobber stop, a lot of times it's too small for, see that hole? Like that bobber stop would go right through that hole. So the hole on this bead is a lot smaller, so it allows me to get away with using a small bobber stop. Or you can just get really big bobber stops, or get bobbers with smaller holes going through them. But that's how I use it. And like I said, this float here is designed to support a ½ ounce of weight. Even 3/4 ounce is pretty good, but ½ ounce is probably the best to use because you don't want a lot of weight on your rod, otherwise it's going to be really awkward to cast. And like I said, ½ ounce weight, well, 2/4 ounce weights, a bead, and the reason I've got the bead, like I said, is to protect that knot. Now the knot that I've done with this really thin braided line is a trilene knot. So it's basically like a clinch, but you go through the eye of your hook or your swivel, whatever, twice, and then wrap it around as many times as you need to. Now with this really thin stuff, if you don't go through the eye twice and do a trilene knot, a lot of times it's going to slip because it's just that thin, and it's actually kind of slippery compared to monofilament or fluorocarbon. And then I like to wrap it around like 6 to 10 times. Like I'd say 8 is probably the minimum. Well, actually, yeah, 8 to 10 times. I'd say 8 is probably the minimum you want to wrap it around, because otherwise, like I said, it'll slip, and you don't want it to slip when you get a fish on. See this? This is a really strong knot. That's not going anywhere. And then on the other side, my barrel swivel. I've got 10-pound fluorocarbon, about 2 feet down to Gamakatsu octopus hook. Let me just show you this hook here. Okay, there it is. Like I said, Gamakatsu octopus. These are really good for snell knots because of that upturned eye. It keeps that hook shank parallel or in line with your line. And then I've got the knot I've tied onto this is, there we go. This is an egg loop. So when you pull that line back out through the eye of the hook with an egg loop, there's a loop there, okay? And what you use that for is to put your eggs or your yarn or your sponge, you know, artificial eggs, skein, whatever you use. There's the loop. And what you do is you slide your eggs onto the hook, or you don't even need to do that. You just put your eggs or whatever your bait is in that loop and then pull your leader line up, and then it secures it on there. And the good thing about that is you don't have to, like, especially when you're using spawn bags, you don't have to rip your spawn bag off the hook, especially when you're using barbed hooks like I am, because a lot of times it's a real pain and you'll get all sorts of the mesh caught on the hook. So that's one of the things I really like to do. So that was my video on fishing the Niagara River, my setup for fishing the Niagara River for trout and salmon. If you guys have any more questions, leave them in the comments section down there. And if you even want to suggest things to me to use in the Niagara or larger bodies of water, or tell me what you use, that would be great too.